Did you know that over 80% of people admit that the biggest obstacle in their life isn't the world outside, but the voice inside their own head? Think about that for a second. Not their boss, not their financial situation, not the lack of opportunities, but their own inner critic, whispering words of doubt, fear, and failure every single day. Let me ask you a question. What would your life look like if you could silence that voice for just 1 week? What would you dare to attempt? What would you finally start, finish, or conquer if the constant echo of "you're not good enough" disappeared? For most of us, our inner critic has been running the show for so long, we don't even realize how much it controls our choices. That voice talks us out of risks, convinces us to stay comfortable, and tricks us into believing that failure is inevitable. But here's the truth. That voice is lying to you. It's built from old fears, past mistakes, and other people's opinions that got stuck in your subconscious. It doesn't know your potential. It doesn't know your future. It only knows how to keep you small. I want you to imagine this clearly. You standing in front of a huge door that leads to everything you've ever wanted. Your dream career, your health, your relationships, your freedom. But standing in front of that door is a guard. That guard is your inner critic, telling you that you don't deserve to walk through. Now imagine what happens when you silence that guard. Imagine the silence. Imagine the space in your mind without that constant criticism. Suddenly, the door isn't locked anymore. Suddenly, you can walk through and finally experience life on your terms. That's exactly what I want to find out. I'm challenging myself to silence my inner critic for 1 week. No more giving it the microphone. No more believing its lies. Just 1 week of replacing doubt with courage and fear with action. And here's the deal. I want you to join me in this challenge. Because I believe that if you and I can shut that voice down, even for a short time, we will see how much stronger, braver, and unstoppable we actually are. So stay with me, because this isn't just another motivational video. This is a journey. A journey where we stop letting our inner critic sabotage us and finally step into the version of ourselves we were always meant to be. Let's start by asking the real question. If that critical voice inside your head went silent, how far could you go? The inner critic is that voice inside your head that never seems to rest. It's the one that tells you you're not ready, that you're not talented enough, that you'll probably fail if you try. And the scary part? Most of us believe it. We don't even question whether that voice is real or accurate. We just accept it as the truth. And because of that, we stop ourselves from even trying. Think about how many opportunities slip away because of this. A person might not apply for their dream job because they hear you're not qualified. Someone might stay silent in a meeting because they hear you'll sound stupid. Another might never start that business, that book, or that creative project because they keep hearing, "Who do you think you are?" The inner critic isn't just a voice. It's a thief that steals dreams before they even get a chance to live. But here's the thing most people don't realize. Your inner critic was not born with you. It's a collection of every negative comment, every failure, every judgment, and every fear you've ever absorbed from the world. Over time, it built itself into a voice inside your head. And while it may sound convincing, it is not you. It's just noise. The purpose of this video and this challenge I'm taking on is to prove that we don't have to listen to that noise anymore. We don't have to let it dictate our actions, our goals, or our lives. Silencing the inner critic isn't about pretending it doesn't exist. It's about recognizing it for what it is and choosing to no longer let it control us. Imagine living 1 week where instead of criticizing yourself, you encouraged yourself. Instead of focusing on what could go wrong, you focused on what could go right. Instead of hearing, "You can't," your mind said, "You can, and here's how." That's what I want to experience, and that's what I want to share with you. Because here's the truth. Every great achievement in history was made by someone who learned to silence their inner critic. Do you think inventors, leaders, athletes, or creators never had doubts? Of course they did, but they made a choice. They chose not to believe the voice that told them they weren't good enough. They chose to act anyway. That's what we're going to do here. This isn't just about motivation. It's about taking back control of your inner world so that you can finally move forward in your outer world. If you've ever felt stuck, if you've ever held yourself back, if you've ever wondered why you keep second-guessing yourself, this journey is for you. By the end of this challenge, I want you and I both to see what happens when we stop living under the rule of our inner critic and start living under the power of our true potential. And trust me, the results might surprise you. So let's begin this journey together. Let's silence that inner critic, not tomorrow, not next month, but right now. Because the life you want isn't waiting for your doubts to end. It's waiting for your courage to begin. The inner critic is sneaky. It doesn't always scream at you, it whispers. Sometimes it sounds like common sense, sometimes it sounds like caution, and sometimes it disguises itself as being realistic. But when you look closely, you'll see it for what it is, a constant stream of negativity that keeps you small. It tells you not to try, not to risk, not to hope too much. It's like having a bully that lives in your mind, one that never takes a day off. You've probably heard it in your own life more times than you can count. Maybe you stood in front of a mirror and thought, I'm not attractive enough. Maybe you've opened up a blank page to write something and immediately heard, you're not creative enough. Or maybe, right when you were about to take a leap, that voice jumped in. What if you fail? What if people laugh? What if you embarrass yourself? And just like that, you stopped. The dream ended before it began. The worst part is, the inner critic doesn't just stop you from doing big, bold things. It chips away at your confidence in small, everyday ways. You hesitate to speak up in a conversation because you think your opinion doesn't matter. You replay past mistakes over and over, convincing yourself that you're defined by them. You compare yourself to others and always come up short. Over time, this doesn't just affect your goals. It affects your entire sense of self-worth. Think about it. How many chances have you let slip away because of that voice? How many times have you wanted to say yes, but ended up saying no? How many nights have you laid awake replaying something you said, wishing you could go back and change it? That's the damage of the inner critic. It traps you in a loop of self-doubt, regret, and hesitation. The challenge here is that the inner critic feels familiar. It feels like it's part of you. It's been with you for so long that you start believing it's your true voice. And when that happens, you mistake lies for truth. You think you're being honest with yourself, but what you're really doing is tearing yourself down with words that were never yours to begin with. The truth is, your inner critic doesn't just block your actions, it blocks your identity. It convinces you that you're smaller than you are, weaker than you are, and less capable than you are. And the more you listen, the more powerless you feel. That's why so many people never even start chasing their goals. It's not because they can't. It's because they've already lost the battle in their own mind. This is the problem we need to confront, because if we don't, life passes us by. Opportunities come and go while we stand on the sidelines, paralyzed by fear and self-doubt. We end up living half-lives, safe but unfulfilled, busy but never truly growing, existing but never fully alive. And all because of a voice that doesn't even deserve our attention. So the challenge is simple, but not easy. We have to silence the inner critic. We have to stop letting it have the final word. We have to recognize when it shows up, call it out, and choose not to let it guide our decisions. That's the battle I'm taking on for the next 7 days. And trust me, if I can do it, you can too. Because imagine this. What if every time your inner critic said, you can't, you chose to answer back with, watch me? What if you stopped waiting for permission and started giving yourself the green light? That's the kind of shift that can turn your entire life around. And it all starts with taking on this challenge. Silencing the inner critic starts with awareness. Most of us don't even realize how much negative self-talk we carry around until we stop and listen. The first step is to pay attention to your thoughts, especially in moments of hesitation or stress. Notice when you hear phrases like, "I'm not good enough," "I always mess this up," or "there's no point in trying." Simply labeling these thoughts as the voice of the inner critic takes away some of its power. It's not the truth, it's just a habit of the mind. Once you've noticed it, the next step is to separate yourself from it. One powerful way to do this is to actually give your inner critic a name. Call it the doubter, the bully, or even something silly that makes it less intimidating. This creates distance between you and that voice. Instead of saying, "I'm a failure," you begin to say, "My inner critic is trying to convince me I'm a failure." That small shift in language changes everything because it reminds you that voice is not who you are. After that comes the strategy of reframing. The inner critic thrives on negativity, so you have to counter it with truth. If it says, "You can't handle this," reframe it to, "This is difficult, but I can learn." If it says, "You're not ready," respond with, "I may not be perfect, but I'm prepared to try." Reframing isn't about ignoring reality. It's about redirecting your focus from limitation to possibility. Another tool is mindfulness. The inner critic loves to pull you into the past or push you into the future. It reminds you of old failures or it scares you with future what-ifs. But when you bring yourself back to the present moment, your breath, your body, your surroundings, you break its grip. The present moment is where action happens. And the critic can't survive in action. It only survives in hesitation. Positive affirmations are another way to fight back. Now, I'm not talking about standing in front of a mirror and saying things you don't believe. I'm talking about repeating truths that anchor you in strength. Statements like, "I am capable of learning," "I deserve opportunities," or "I can handle challenges," are not fantasies. They are reminders of what's real. The more you repeat them, the more they drown out the critic's lies. But there's also a practical side to silencing the critic: taking action. The critic gets louder when you're standing still. It feeds on inactivity. The moment you take even a small step, sending the email, writing the first page, making the phone call, you weaken its hold. Action proves the critic wrong. Every single time you move forward, you're collecting evidence that you're stronger than the voice in your head. One often overlooked strategy is self-compassion. Most people talk to themselves in ways they would never talk to a friend. They tear themselves down over mistakes, they magnify flaws, and they refuse to forgive themselves. But self-compassion changes that. It's the practice of speaking kindly to yourself, of recognizing that mistakes are part of being human. Instead of saying, "I'm such a failure," you say, "I messed up, but I'm still learning." That kindness quiets the critic more than harshness ever will. You can also challenge the critic with evidence. When it tells you, "You always fail," ask yourself, is that really true? Think of the times you succeeded, the times you overcame, the times you proved yourself wrong. Most of the critic's power comes from generalizations and exaggerations. The moment you shine the light of truth on its lies, they start to dissolve. And finally, surround yourself with voices that lift you up. The inner critic is strong when you're isolated, but it's weaker when you're around people who remind you of your value. Positive environments, supportive friends, mentors, and even the content you consume online, all of these shape the volume of the critic in your mind. Replace negativity with inspiration, and you'll notice the difference almost immediately. These are the tools I'll be using in this challenge: awareness, reframing, mindfulness, affirmations, action, self-compassion, evidence, and supportive environments. They aren't quick fixes, but together they create a powerful shield. And with practice, they don't just silence the inner critic temporarily, they retrain your mind to think differently. They transform that voice from being your biggest enemy into something you can completely ignore. There comes a moment in this battle where everything changes. You've been listening to that inner critic for so long that it feels like part of your identity. But then something shifts. You catch it in the act. You realize, in real time, wait a minute, that voice isn't me. And the moment you see that truth clearly, it feels like a weight has been lifted from your shoulders. For me, the breakthrough came in a simple, everyday situation. I was about to try something new, and right on cue, the critic showed up. You'll probably mess this up. You failed before. Why would this time be any different? Normally, that voice would have stopped me cold, but this time, I paused. I took a breath, and instead of agreeing with it, I answered back. That's not true. I am capable. I've learned from every failure, and I'm not here to be perfect. I'm here to grow. That was the moment I realized something powerful. The critic only has as much power as I give it. Every time I believe its lies, it grows louder. But the second I challenge it, its voice weakens. The second I replace its words with truth, it loses its grip. And in that moment, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Freedom. The key insight here is this. Your inner critic isn't your enemy because of what it says. It's your enemy because of how much you trust it. Once you stop treating it like the authority of your life and start treating it like background noise, you regain control. It's like turning the volume down on a radio station you don't like. You don't have to remove it completely. You just don't have to let it drown out everything else. And here's the real breakthrough. When you silence the critic, you uncover a voice that's been waiting beneath it all along. The voice of your potential, the voice of your courage, the voice that says, yes, you can. Yes, you're ready. Yes, it's possible. That's the voice that's been buried under years of doubt. And when you hear it for the first time, it feels like waking up. It's in that moment you realize the critic never defined you. It never had the final say. It was never your truth. Your truth is strength, resilience, and the ability to rise every single time you fall. And when you connect with that truth, your entire mindset changes. You stop asking, what if I fail? And start asking, what if I fly? This is the turning point. This is where silence becomes power. Because once you've experienced life without the constant nagging of the critic, you don't want to go back. You see how much energy, creativity, and courage were locked away because of those lies, and you're not willing to let them control you anymore. From this moment forward, everything becomes different. Decisions feel lighter. Risks feel manageable. Goals feel possible. Not because the critic disappeared, but because you no longer obey it. You've proven to yourself that you can live above it, beyond it, stronger than it. And that's the breakthrough I want you to feel too. The moment you realize you are not your doubts, you are not your fears, and you are not your inner critic. You are the voice that chooses to rise above all of them. When we step back and look at this journey, one truth becomes clear. The inner critic has always been the biggest obstacle standing between us and the life we want. It wasn't the lack of resources, or time, or even talent. It was that constant voice of doubt that made us question ourselves before we even began. And once we see that, we realize that silencing the critic isn't just a nice idea. It's the key to unlocking everything we've been holding back. Think about it. Every moment we've talked ourselves out of taking action, it was the critic. Every time we felt paralyzed by what ifs, it was the critic. Every dream that died in silence wasn't because it was impossible. It was because we let that voice convince us it was. That's the tragedy of listening to the critic. But the beauty is, the moment we decide not to listen anymore, we change the entire story. This week, I challenged myself to silence that voice, to replace its negativity with truth, to answer its lies with courage. And what I found was simple but life-changing. The critic isn't nearly as strong as it pretends to be. It's fragile. It cracks the moment you shine a light on it. The moment you respond with action, with kindness, with self-belief, it crumbles. Silencing the critic doesn't mean the voice will disappear forever. It will still try to whisper. It will still try to sneak in. But now you know the truth. You know it's not you. You know it doesn't get the final word. And that awareness alone makes you stronger than it. The summary is this. If you want to start winning in life, you have to win the battle in your mind first. You have to stop letting that voice of fear, doubt, and limitation control your choices. You have to choose courage over criticism, action over hesitation, and truth over lies. Because the moment you do, everything changes. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to have all the answers. You just need to stop believing the inner critic long enough to take the next step forward. And when you do, you'll discover that you are far more capable, far more resilient, and far more powerful than you ever imagined. So the next time that voice shows up and tells you you can't, I want you to smile and say, "Watch me." The next time it tries to convince you you're not ready, remind yourself that no one ever feels ready, but you're still moving forward anyway. That's how you silence it. That's how you take back control. In the end, the critic doesn't define your life. You do. And the choice is simple. You can keep listening to that voice and stay stuck, or you can silence it and finally start winning. The power is already in your hands. The question is, are you ready to use it? Now it's your turn. I've taken on the challenge of silencing my inner critic for a week, and I want you to do the same. For the next 7 days, whenever that voice of doubt, fear, or negativity shows up, catch it. Don't let it pass unnoticed. Call it out, challenge it, and replace it with something true, something powerful, something that moves you forward instead of holding you back. And here's what I'd love from you. Share your experience in the comments. Tell me what your inner critic usually says to you. Is it telling you you're not smart enough, not strong enough, not ready? And then tell me how you plan to answer back. Because when you share your story, not only do you silence your own critic, you also inspire someone else who's fighting the same battle. If this message hit home for you, if you felt that moment of recognition where you realized, yes, that's me, I've been holding myself back, then don't just watch this video, act on it. Take the challenge. Speak differently to yourself. Start proving the critic wrong one decision at a time. And if you're ready to go even deeper into this journey, I've got another video waiting for you that builds on this lesson. It's all about breaking free from self-doubt and building unstoppable confidence. Click on it after this and keep the momentum going. Because here's the truth. Winning doesn't start with money or fame or recognition. Winning starts here, in your mind. And once you learn to silence the inner critic, you unlock a version of yourself that is fearless, determined, and unstoppable. So join me. Take the challenge. Silence that inner critic. And let's start winning together.